Wait, you're telling me I can grow fresh produce in November while my neighbors think their gardening season is over? Yes. And some of these picks actually taste better when planted right now. Stick around because number 4 on this list literally laughs at frost, and most people have no idea it exists. Hey there, garden friend. Welcome back to Earthly Gardening, the place where we prove you don't need deep pockets to grow incredible food. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found us. We're all about practical, budget-friendly tips that actually work in real backyards, patios, and balconies. Today's topic: the container crops you absolutely need to plant this November. Trust me, your future self will thank you. Before we dig in, literally do me a quick favor. Smash that like button so this video reaches more gardeners who need it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications. We drop new growing secrets every week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Alright, let's get into these November superstars. So here's the thing most people get wrong about November gardening. They think the season's over. They pack up their containers, store their tools, and wait for spring. But here's what commercial growers know that home gardeners often miss. November is actually a golden window for specific crops that not only survive but absolutely flourish in cooler temperatures. And we're not talking about those sad, struggling plants barely hanging on. I'm talking about vegetables that become sweeter, more flavorful, and honestly easier to grow when Jack Frost comes knocking. The best part? Containers make this whole process ridiculously simple because you control everything: the soil, the position, even the microclimate. Today, I'm walking you through 6 container crops that will completely change how you view winter growing. These aren't your grandma's garden staples, well, they are, but we're approaching them in ways that most videos won't tell you. Let's jump right in. Crop 1, spinach. First up, we've got something I call the winter warrior, and you probably know it as spinach. But hold on, because there's a twist here. Most folks plant spinach and then watch it bolt as the second temperatures rise. November planting completely eliminates that problem. When you sow spinach now, it grows slowly and steadily through winter, developing these thick, almost succulent leaves that are packed with flavor. The cold actually triggers sugar production as a natural antifreeze, making your harvest taste noticeably sweeter than summer spinach. Here's the container setup that works magic. Grab any pot that's at least 8 inches deep. Spinach has surprisingly deep roots, and shallow containers lead to stressed plants. Fill it with a regular potting mix, no fancy amendments needed, and scatter seeds about 2 inches apart. I like the broadcast method, where you just sprinkle them across the surface rather than planting in rows. Way faster, and you get better space efficiency. The uncommon trick? Position your container where it gets morning sun but afternoon shade. Sounds backwards, right? But November through February, that morning light is gentle and encouraging, while afternoon shade prevents temperature swings that stress young plants. I keep mine against a south-facing wall, and that reflected warmth creates this perfect microclimate. Water only when the top inch feels dry. Overwatering kills more winter spinach than cold ever will. Within 3 weeks, you'll be snipping outer leaves for salads, and that plant will keep producing for months. 1 container can easily give you fresh greens twice a week through winter. That's a serious value for maybe $3 in seeds. Crop 2, kale. Now let's talk about kale. But forget everything you think you know about this leafy green. Most people treat kale like it's fragile, but this plant is basically indestructible once you understand its superpower. Kale doesn't just tolerate frost, it craves it. After a few good freezes, the starches convert to sugars, and suddenly you've got leaves that are tender and almost nutty instead of bitter and tough. I've had kale survive single-digit temperatures without blinking. It's wild. For containers, you need at least a 5-gallon bucket or pot, around 12 inches deep. Kale develops this substantial root system, and cramped roots mean tough leaves. Drill drainage holes if you're using repurposed bucket. Standing water is your only real enemy here. Plant 1 seedling per container if you want full-sized plants, or space 3 seedlings around the edge if you prefer baby greens. Here's the method nobody talks about. Add a 2-inch layer of compost on top of your potting soil before planting. Not mixed in on top. As you water through winter, those nutrients slowly leach down, feeding your kale exactly when it needs fuel for new growth. Placement matters hugely. Unlike spinach, kale wants maximum light exposure. Stick it in the sunniest spot you've got. South-facing, no obstructions, full blast. More light equals more growth, even in winter's weak sunshine. The harvest technique changes everything about your yield. Never strip a plant bare. Always pick the lowest leaves first, leaving at least 4 young leaves at the crown. This keeps the plant actively growing instead of going into survival mode. One plant can produce for 4 solid months using this method, giving you enough greens for multiple meals every week. That's serious food security from one $5 plant. Crop 3, radishes. Alright, crop number 3 is where things get really fun. Radishes. Now, I know what you're thinking. Radishes are boring, they're just spicy little roots. But November radishes are an entirely different experience, and they might be the fastest return on investment you'll ever see in a container. Here's what makes November magical for radishes. Cool soil temperatures slow their growth just enough to prevent that woody, overly pungent bite you get in summer. Instead, you get these crisp, juicy roots with a gentle heat that even people who don't like radishes actually enjoy. Plus, they mature in 3 to 4 weeks. You could literally be harvesting before December hits. Container choice is dead simple. Anything 6 inches deep works: window boxes, shallow tubs, even repurposed food containers with holes punched in the bottom. The width matters more than depth since radishes grow wide, not deep. Fill with loose, fluffy potting mix. If your mix feels heavy or clay-like, blend in some sand or perlite. Radishes need to push through soil easily, or they develop weird shapes. Sow seeds 1/2 inch deep, spacing them 2 inches apart in all directions. Here's the unconventional wisdom. Plant a new batch every 10 days through November and into December if your climate allows. This gives you continuous harvest instead of one big flush followed by nothing. Succession planting transforms radishes from a one-time snack into a reliable food source. Water consistently, this is critical. Uneven moisture causes radishes to split or become pithy. I check daily and water whenever the surface looks dry. They're shallow-rooted, so they depend entirely on you for moisture. The variety choice matters more than most realize. Skip the standard red globe types and try Easter egg mix or French breakfast. These November performers have better cold tolerance and more interesting flavors. Some are mild enough to eat like apples. One 10-inch container can yield 20 radishes per planting. At grocery store prices, that's $5 worth of produce from a $2 packet of seeds. The math just makes sense. Hey, quick pause. If you're getting value from this so far, drop a comment below and tell me which crop you're most excited to try. Also, what's your biggest November gardening challenge? I read every single comment, and your questions actually shape future videos. And if you haven't liked this video yet, go ahead and tap that button. It genuinely helps more gardeners discover this information. Alright, let's keep rolling because the next 3 crops are absolute game changers. Crop 4, garlic. Number 4 is garlic, and before you click away thinking this is too complicated, hear me out. Growing garlic in containers is shockingly simple, and November is literally the only time you should be planting it in most climates. Garlic needs a cold period to develop properly. Those cloves sitting in cold soil through winter are basically programming themselves to divide and grow come spring. Plant them now, forget about them for months, and next summer you'll be pulling up full bulbs. It's almost passive income, but for food. Container requirements are specific but manageable. You need at least 10 inches of depth because garlic roots go surprisingly deep. Width depends on how many bulbs you want. Space cloves 4 inches apart. A standard 12-inch pot fits about 5 cloves comfortably. Break apart a bulb into individual cloves, keeping the papery skin on. This is important, that skin protects against rot. Push each clove 2 inches deep, pointy end up. If you plant them upside down, they'll still grow, but they waste energy flipping themselves over first. Save them the trouble. Here's the trick nobody mentions. After planting, add a 3-inch layer of mulch on top. Shredded leaves, straw, even shredded paper works. This insulates against freeze-thaw cycles that can heave cloves out of soil. Plus, it suppresses weeds and retains moisture. Place containers in full sun, and then basically ignore them until spring. Seriously, Garlic wants to be left alone through winter. Come March, you'll see green shoots, and that's when you start light watering. But from November through February, minimal intervention needed. The payoff is remarkable. One clove produces one full bulb with multiple cloves inside. Plant 5 cloves, harvest 5 bulbs, potentially 50 new cloves total. At current garlic prices, you're looking at serious savings, plus the flavor of homegrown garlic absolutely destroys store-bought varieties. There's this depth and complexity you simply can't buy. Crop 5. Lettuce. Crop number 5 is lettuce, but we're approaching this completely differently than those spring salad gardens everyone talks about. November lettuce operates under different rules. Without intense heat, these plants grow slower but develop incredible texture and flavor. The leaves stay tender for weeks instead of days. No bitter aftertaste, no bolt anxiety, just consistent, reliable greens that keep producing. Container setup couldn't be easier. Any shallow pot works, even 6 inches deep is plenty since lettuce has minimal root depth. I've successfully grown lettuce in old colanders, plastic storage bins, basically anything that holds soil and drains water. Variety selection is where you gain a real edge. Skip iceberg and romaine for November. Instead, look for cold hardy types. Butter crunch, winter density, or any variety labeled winter or cold frame. These are bred specifically for low temperatures and shorter days. They'll outperform regular varieties by miles. Sow seeds directly on the soil surface, barely pressing them in. Lettuce needs light to germinate, so buried seeds often fail. Scatter them generously, you can always thin later. Within a week, you'll see tiny green threads emerging. Here's the unconventional approach. Treat your lettuce container like a cut-and-come-again salad bar. Once leaves reach 4 inches tall, start harvesting the outer ones with scissors, leaving the inner growth untouched. The plant continuously produces new leaves from the center, giving you multiple harvests instead of one head. Position matters. Morning sun is great, but harsh afternoon exposure can stress plants even in November. I tuck mine near taller containers or against a wall where they get bright light without direct blasting. Water when the top half-inch dries out. Lettuce likes consistent moisture but not soggy conditions. Overwatering leads to rot, especially as temperatures drop and evaporation slows. One container can produce enough salad for 2 people twice a week for 2 months straight. That's roughly $30 worth of organic greens from a $1 seed packet. When you factor in the elimination of grocery trips and wasted store-bought lettuce that goes slimy, the value multiplies even further. Crop 6. Carrots. Last but absolutely not least, we're diving into carrots. Now, I know carrots seem intimidating in containers, but November planting actually makes them easier than spring attempts, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Cold soil temperatures prevent carrot rust fly, which is the main pest that ruins spring carrot crops. By planting now, you're sidestepping that entire problem. Plus, carrots that mature in cold weather develop this incredible sweetness. They're almost candy-like compared to summer harvests. Container depth is non-negotiable. You need at least 12 inches for standard carrots, though shorter varieties like Paris Market or Thumbelina can work in 8-inch pots. The depth determines your variety choice, so measure your containers first. Fill with the lightest, fluffiest potting mix you can create. Carrots absolutely hate compacted soil. If they hit resistance, they fork, twist, or stunt. Mix regular potting soil with equal parts sand or vermiculite. It should feel almost airy. Sow seeds directly, spacing them about an inch apart. Carrot seeds are tiny, so mix them with sand before spreading. This helps you see where you've planted and prevents overcrowding. Barely cover with soil, then water gently. Germination takes forever, up to 3 weeks sometimes. Don't panic. Keep the soil barely moist, and eventually, those ferny little tops will appear. Once they're 2 inches tall, thin to 2-inch spacing. This feels wasteful, but crowded carrots never develop properly. You can eat the thin seedlings as microgreens. Here's the placement secret. Carrots want cool soil but decent light. Morning sun with afternoon shade creates ideal conditions. Too much heat makes them bitter, while too much shade produces all tops and no roots. Balance is key. Water deeply but infrequently, encourage those roots to drive down searching for moisture. Shallow, frequent watering creates shallow roots. Once a week, thoroughly soaking beets, daily sprinkling every time. Harvest begins around 10 weeks, but here's the cool part. You can leave carrots in containers through winter, pulling them as needed. The soil protects them better than any refrigerator. Just grab what you need for dinner and leave the rest growing. One container can feed you fresh carrots for 3 months straight, and the flavor is genuinely incomparable to store-bought. That earthy sweetness, the crisp snap, it's a completely different vegetable. Alright, so there you have it, 6 container crops that transform November from garden hibernation into active food production. Let's quickly recap what makes these work so well right now. Spinach for continuous greens, kale for cold weather sweetness, radishes for quick wins, garlic for long-term payoff, lettuce for endless salads, and carrots for storage quality roots. Every single one of these becomes easier, tastier, or more productive specifically because you're planting in November. The container approach removes so many traditional barriers. No tilling, no weeding, no ground pests. You control the soil quality, the water, the position, everything. And unlike in-ground gardens, you can move containers to chase sun or avoid harsh conditions. Cost-wise, we're talking maybe $20 total to get all 6 crops started. That investment returns literally hundreds of dollars worth of organic produce over the coming months. Even if you only succeed with half of these, you're way ahead financially and nutritionally. Here's my challenge for you. Pick at least 2 crops from this list and get them planted this week. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Just start. November's window is open, but it closes fast. Your future self in January, pulling fresh greens and crunchy radishes from containers on your porch while snow falls, will be incredibly grateful you took action today. If this video helped you see November gardening in a new light, please share it with another gardener who needs this information. Hit that like button so the algorithm shares this with more people, and subscribe if you want more practical, budget-friendly growing content. Drop a comment telling me which crop you're starting with. I genuinely want to know. Thanks so much for spending this time with me today. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and remember, the best gardens are built one container at a time. Happy planting, friends.